Hi, I'm Beverly Harzog, host of Your Personal Economy. Thanks for joining me for episode number 31, Lifestyles of the Financially Independent. In this episode, I'm going to share the 5 most common habits that financially independent people have in common. And how do I know what they are? Because I'm financially independent and I can tell you exactly what works. I want you to be financially independent too, and I'm going to help you get there. So, first, we're going to start off talking about a habit that really is the foundation for your pathway to financial freedom and financial independence. I've been a money and consumer credit expert for about 35 years. Yeah, that's a long time. And I have written thousands of articles on these topics. I've been interviewed hundreds and hundreds of times on TV and on radio, and I've written 5 books. And across all these mediums, it really boils down to 5 words: spend less than you make. 5 words, okay? Because that's really the basis, and that is the number one habit of people who become financially independent. You can't save money. You can't have an emergency fund. If you spend more money than you make, that means you might be using credit cards, which you might be paying compound interest. You can't get ahead when you're doing that unless you have a job that pays you a whole lot of money. And most of us don't have that luxury. If you do, congratulations. But I think most of us, even if we get to the point where we're making a good salary, we still have to think ahead and be sure that we save for retirement, however that's going to look for you. If you've got kids, college education, even just school, elementary school and high school, it's all expensive. Okay, so you do have to plan ahead and you have to spend less than you make. So, how do you do that? I mean, I know it's something people say all the time, right? I know you hear this all the time, but here's how you do that. And this leads right into the second habit of the financially independent. And that is using a budget and tracking your spending. Okay. As long as you do that and you are really dedicated and committed to staying on track with this is your structure you've got in place. I call it your financial foundation. As long as you stick to that, you will spend less than you make. And then the money you have left over can go towards things like investing, put it towards an emergency fund. Think about what you might like for a budgeted splurge. What would make you happy? Little treats you can do for yourself along the way. And I do believe in that wholeheartedly. You can't give up everything and then suddenly stick to this budget for a long, long time. You're going to fall off the wagon at some point because that's just too hard to do. It's almost like punishing yourself. So you do have to be careful that you don't waste too much money on treats. Okay. But you also want to be sure that you're giving yourself a little something so that you stay motivated. Okay. Now, with a budget, there are so many different ways to go. You can do paper pencil, you can do your own Excel spreadsheets. You can use some of the money management software that's online or an app. I use something called Rocket Money, and I like it very much. I used to use Mint, and after that went away, the new version of it, which I believe is on mobile, just didn't meet my needs anymore. So I budget and track my spending with Rocket Money. I do pay a premium. It's very, very low. Okay. I found it very difficult to replace the old Mint with something that had the same features that I personally wanted. So just do a little bit of research and find something that works for you. So far, we've got spend less than you make and budget and track your spending. Now, coming up next is something that every financially independent person does. And you're going to want to do this too, because it really puts you on the right path. The third habit is having a robust emergency fund. I can't stress enough the importance of this. And I don't want you to keep it in a bank account where you're getting, less than 1.5% interest. I want you to look at high yield savings accounts. Most of these are on online banks, and you'll get anywhere from, when I checked today, about 4.3 to a little over 5%. Now, it has gone down a little bit since the Fed lowered the interest rate. And when they lower the interest rate, that does lower the interest rate on credit cards, but it also lowers it on high yield savings accounts and other types of interest accounts. So keep that in mind. But still, it's so much better than just keeping it parked in a regular traditional bank. The reason you get better rates with a high yield savings account is because they don't have to pay for overhead. Banks are like brick and mortar, and they have a lot of overhead to cover. So you don't get as much interest, okay, in your savings, but you will with a high yield savings account. So keep a watch on that. And when you get a little bit of money in your emergency fund, think about transferring it to one of those accounts. Now, some experts will say, I'll start with $1,000. Well, that's not enough. Okay. Let's say your monthly expenses are $4,000. Okay. If that's so, then I want you to focus on 50% of that. $2,000 is your first goal. That doesn't mean you get it in the first month. That just means that's your goal to attain. I want you to have some pretty high goals for this. I don't want you to aim low and easily make it. I want you to aim a little bit higher and think about how good you're going to feel when you've got $2,000 in an emergency fund. And then from that point, we're going to up it to $4,000. If your monthly expenses are $6,000, and if you've got kids, that's not unbelievable at all. Okay. So if that's the case, then make sure that your first goal is going to be $3,000. It might take you a little bit longer to get that, but make regular contributions. Think of it as paying yourself first when you get your paycheck. I don't care if you can only put $50 into that savings account towards your emergency fund. Just make a deal with yourself that you're doing this on every paycheck. Hey, listen, if times are tough and you can only contribute $20, I want you to do that. Okay. The important thing is to get on your way, because you know what happens when you don't have an emergency fund. When anything in your life goes wrong, you're going to have to get either a personal loan if you can, or you're going to have to use a credit card at really high interest. Credit cards are only for short-term interest-free loans. That means you use the card, you earn rewards, you pay the balance in full by the due date. When you carry a balance on a credit card, you end up paying compound interest. That raises your cost of a purchase to be so much. Years ago, I had this house where the roof leaked, and it ended up doing $13,000 worth of damage. By the time they were finished getting out all the debris, I had two giant holes in my kitchen, and I really stressed about that. Fortunately, home insurance came through, but in the meantime, I had to kind of pay some of this while I waited for all that red tape to play itself out. And so you want to be sure that you've always got an emergency fund so you never have to resort to high interest debt. That leads us to our very next thing. Habit number 4. Financially independent people are very good at debt management. That doesn't mean we don't have debt. Okay. That means if we get into debt, we find a way to get out of it, or we certainly avoid toxic debt. Now, by toxic debt, I mean like credit card debt. I just talked about compound interest. And you see that book up there, Confessions of a Credit Junkie? That is the sad tale of how I spent my 20s. And I'm telling you, I did not start my journey towards financial independence until I was in my 30s. Seriously, I had to spend the end of my 20s getting out of credit card debt because, for one thing, I spent a whole lot more money than I made. I had no emergency funds. I didn't have a budget or track spending. I didn't do any of the things that I would eventually learn how to do that would put me on track towards being financially independent. And just to be clear, by financial independence, I mean you don't actually have to work. You can live off of your passive income. And that's what I do. And you might be wondering, well, why am I doing this? Because I love this. I just can't stop. I love sharing my expertise with my viewers and my readers. And I have a passion for it. And I feel like I am on this earth to help people attain some of the things that I've attained. And I want to help you do that. I really am having fun. I left my corporate job to do this. And that's what financial independence is. You can make any choice you want. Okay. And if it takes a little while to take off, well, that's fine too. But that's what I mean by financial independence. Now, financial freedom is also a good thing. That's when you feel free to kind of just live your life. You make a good income. You're not getting into debt. You're not living paycheck to paycheck. And you do have enough money for a vacation and some things you like to do. So that feels good too. That's financial freedom. But financial independence is in a whole nother galaxy. Okay. That's when you can just do what you want and make the most of every day. Okay. And I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. But it took a lot of hard work. And I did all the things I'm sharing with you in this episode. So when it comes to debt, avoid it. Mortgages are considered a good debt. Student loans are considered a good debt as long as you don't overdo it. And by that, I mean, don't get a loan and get a degree where you can't possibly make enough money to pay back that loan. For example, get a loan that is no more than what you will make in the first year of your new career. Okay. So let's say you expect to make 50 grand in your first year of whatever career you've chosen. Your student loan should not exceed that. Hopefully it won't even get that high. Okay. But you need to be very careful, pay that on time, pay those bills on time. And that also helps you build credit. With a mortgage, as long as you've made a good choice and you don't get underwater on a mortgage. And by that, I mean, you bought a house that's really overvalued. And so you end up owing more money than the home's worth. And we had that problem back in 2008 when we had sort of a subprime mortgage crisis. And hopefully we'll get into that anytime soon. We've got a lot of houses overpriced right now, but it seems sort of in line with the way the market's going. And I think that's going to get a little bit better as interest rates start to come down. So if you do have debt and it's good debt, don't fret about that. If you want to pay it off as quickly as possible, get a mortgage, do 15 years if you can. You'll get a better interest rate and you'll pay less per month. If you can't afford that, I understand. But that's one way to pay off your mortgage in a hurry. I've done that before. So with debt, just be very, very careful. And as long as you stick to that budget and track your spending and you practice a little discipline, you will be able to stay out of toxic debt. Now, coming up next is the really big one. Okay. This one takes time, but it is so worth it. Okay. And this is what leads to financial independence. If all these other things are in place, this one will work out for you and lead you straight to independence. All right. Number 5 is a big one. This habit involves investing wisely. Now, think back to the other habits we've talked about of the financially independent. You want to live below your means. You have to have a budget and track your spending. You have to develop an emergency fund, and you have to be able to manage debt and stay out of toxic debt. Now, doing all those things makes it possible to have the money to invest. Okay. If you work for a company and you have a chance to get 401k matching, do that. Do that from day one as soon as you're eligible. Okay. Or you can start your own IRA. whatever works for you and your situation. Today, my husband and I just live off of our investments. He does some consulting. I do this podcast. I also do a little consulting. And we do generate a little income, but we don't actually need that income. All right. We're living completely off of our investment returns. And that's a fabulous feeling. Now, when you're planning ahead, you're thinking, okay, how much money am I going to need? It depends on what you want to do when you're older. And if you're going for FIRE, which is financially independent, retire early, I support you. That's fine. But do keep in mind that if you spend way too much time working when you're young so that you can retire at 40, there's a couple of issues there. You're going to need a lot of money if you're going to completely stop working. Because what if you retire at 40 and you live to 95? That's 55 years. Okay. You've got to be sure to have enough money for all that. The other issue is if you put all of your effort and time into work and don't enjoy your life along the way, which takes money, okay, spending, the future isn't guaranteed to any of us. I have many friends who died when I was younger, and things happen, accidents, serious illnesses. So be sure that you're enjoying the moment, whatever approach you take. Be sure that you do enjoy the present and spend time with family and friends. So if you do want to do that, that's fine. But I will also say that everyone needs a purpose in life. Okay. I would be unhappy if I just completely retired and didn't do anything but sit on my deck and watch the sunset. Okay. So I'm happy with my choices. Okay. And financially independent means you can make those choices, whatever choice is best for you. So that's why financial independence is so great. Now, experts will say you want to pull out about 4% a year. So you can get on the internet, there are all kinds of retirement calculators, and you can decide how much money you think you will need per month when you stop working, even whether you're going to work part time or do volunteer work or whatever it is you're going to do. And you might have some extra income or Social Security, whatever that might be. Think about how much you're going to want per month for the lifestyle that you want to live later on. Okay. Now, we take out about 3.7, 3.8 and have more than we need per month doing that. And we spent many years saving. It's a combination of stocks, 401ks, IRAs. We've been doing this for decades and it does pay off. Also, think about investments along the way, such as real estate. Now, we sold our house a couple of years ago after living in it for 27 years. Okay, we sold it for 3 times what we paid for it. And that was a very nice addition to the retirement fund. So, renting is easier in terms of no headaches, but you're not going to have that type of investment that can pay off for you later. So you've got to decide what's important to you. Okay. With investments, I want you to look at stocks. We also have dividend income. Once you get to about $50,000 in investments, consider using a financial analyst or a financial planner. That has really been essential to our success in becoming financially independent. I mean, you can do a lot of research and do a lot of investments on your own, but if you work with a professional, they can really help you tailor, okay, your investments to what works for you in terms of your age, your risk tolerance, and the kind of life you want later. So keep all that in mind. And if you practice all of these habits, you can become financially independent. And that's what I want for all of you. I want everyone to be able to have the life that you want. And when you're in the position of being financially independent, you could just create your own life. I am just having so much fun these days doing this. At 4 o'clock every single day, I go for a walk on a nearby trail. So I've created my own life that works great for me without having any financial headaches to worry about. I can just give back to society at this point, and it feels really good. I want that for you too. Thanks so much for joining me for episode number 31, Lifestyles of the Financially Independent. We talked about different habits that are common among those who are financially independent and how you can start developing these habits in your life so that you can be on the path to financial independence. Coming up next in episode 32, I'm going to continue that conversation. We're going to talk about what it means to really live off of your investments. And more importantly, how do you get there and how does it all work? I will explain that coming up next. And if you're enjoying my podcast, please subscribe. I have a video podcast here on YouTube, but you can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you at the next episode.